Good morning and welcome to Sew Saturdays. Today we're going to make an Elsa costume. I know we made a princess costume for autumn 2 weekends ago. However, she changed her mind and now she wants an Elsa costume. I didn't have a chance to go get the fabric in time for this tutorial, so I'm going to use what I have here at home. I have some blue here we're going to use for the top. I have some shimmery blue tulle here that we're going to use for the sleeves and the cape, as well as some blue fabric that we're going to use for the bodice and the skirt. Now I also have more of this tulle, like I said, for the cape and for the skirt. This is going to go on top of the skirt once we cut it. And what we're going to do to get the size for our skirt, we're going to double our child's waist. My child's waist is 20. I like to go up an inch just to give her some extra room and for the seam allowance. So I'm going to cut 42 instead of 40 like I normally would, just because I'm using a non-stretch fabric. If I were using a stretchable fabric, I would just cut double and that would be 40. So whatever your child's waist is, or your waist if you're making it for yourself, you're going to double it and give yourself some seam allowance and some extra room. I'm using a shirt of hers that I already have, and this is going to be what we use for our pattern. So I have a 4-way fold here. As you can see, it's folded from the bottom and is folded here on the sides, and this is where we're going to cut our shirt. And actually, let's do it this way because it's more of a stretch going along the bias here than it is right there. Actually, it's kind of a 4-way stretch, but seems like a little bit more stretch here. So we have the same concept, as you can see, and it's just folded over here on the top, which is fine because we're still going to get the same cut. Okay, so it's up to you how you choose to cut your fabric. If you are making this for a child, you know that you want a little bit more stretch than normal, just because children grow, and when you're making costumes, they want to keep them forever. So my little rule of thumb is to make it bigger. That way they'll grow into it before they grow out of it. So like I said, I'm just going to mark a little bit, and for the neckline I'm actually going to mark exactly where it is. And I'm just using a sewing pencil right now, so this actually will come out in the wash. And it's kind of strange that I'm using the same color as my fabric, but I can see it, so it's no problem. Now for the shoulder area, I'm just going to come up just a little bit more, just so I have a little bit more room here. And this gives me a little bit more room for her along with my seam allowance. Now I'm not going to cut the sleeve. Like I said, we're going to cut that with the tulle. We're going to use the tulle for that. So what we're going to do is, once we get right here at the end of our shoulder, we're just going to make sure this is evenly put together. We're going to fold this in so we can get the curve of the armhole. And just follow along the seam here. And some shirts are easier to use than others. This just happens to be slightly difficult, but that's okay. And just trace along the outside of that. And yes, I am using a lot more inches than I normally would, but like I said, I would rather her keep this for a while, so I'm not making another costume in the future. I'm just going to continue down with our curve here. And fabric can get a little tricky. You just have to play around and maneuver around with it until you get what you need. And it doesn't have to be perfect trace, just enough so you know where you're cutting. And we're almost done. And I'm just going to cut right here. This is where I'm going to end mine. You could go a little bit further down if you want, but I'm making a bodice piece and a skirt piece, so I just want this to be halfway. And because this is a cotton lycra fabric, the best thing about it, it's a knit, and you don't have to roll it up like you normally would for let's say a satin fabric or any other fabric that frays, because this fabric will not fray. And you could pay mine as well to the neckline, that you don't have to worry about giving a fold of hem for the neckline. Okay, so now that we have that done, what we're going to do is just cut out where we traced. So now what we have is two equal pieces, a front and a back, and I have mine on the wrong side, so when I get ready to sew it, I don't have to flip it back over. I can just go ahead and sew. And you see what I mean? This fabric does not fray. You see that? So you don't really have to worry about creating a hem for this. You can if you want, but you don't need to. So I'm going to pin it where I'm going to sew it. In the beginning, until you get the sleeves on, you just want to sew across the shoulders, right across here, because you want to leave this open when you go to attach the sleeve. So we're going to get to making the sleeve after I finish pinning this. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use the sleeve to cut our sleeve. And what I've done is I folded it lengthwise and then again widthwise. So we get two cuts of sleeve. So I am going to so you're going to cut that, actually. And it would have been better had I cut it the other way, but it's still going to work out. What I did was I cut this wrong. So what we're actually going to do is sew along this one side here so we can get it together and get it looking how we need to get it looking. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish pinning this, and I'm going to wait to sew everything. I just want to pin everything right now, so when it's time to sew, we can just sew everything at one time. Okay, so what we have here is our blue fabric, and I have pinned it at the top just because it makes it easier for me when I get ready to cut. And this is going to be one piece that's going to go around her chest area. Now, the normal measurements that you will find online for the chest of a 5-year-old will be 24. However, I just measured my daughter and she's 23 inches around. So what I'm going to do is take this shirt. I'm actually going to pin at the bottom where I want to cut. And then what I'm going to do here is actually just leave the shirt there. Actually, I don't need it anymore. Since I know that she's 23 inches, I'm actually going to measure this around at 24, just because I want to give her extra inches, like I said, so she could have this for a little bit longer than she normally would. So what do? Because we're measuring, because this is folded in half, so for me, that number would be 12. So what I'm going to do is just take this up here and just put a little mark where I'm going to cut. So what we're going to do for our top piece is create a curve. I just want to create a little curve to add a little bit of something extra. So you're just going to take your pencil and just curve it around, and this is why we didn't cut the top part initially. So you want to curve it, and I'm going to take this curve all the way around until I get to the back. And then what I'm going to do is start to go down a little bit and then back up, just to give it a little bit of a design. And now we're just going to cut that. and then we could start putting everything together. And I did cut the skirt, and what I did for the skirt, I cut this is 44 inches around and 20 inches long. I actually decided to shorten it, so it's going to be 20 inches long, so it's going to be just a tad bit shorter than what I initially said I was going to do it as. And if at any point you find that you want to alter this before you start sewing it together, you know, measure it around your daughter, measure it around yourself if you're doing it for yourself, just so you know what you want it to be and it comes out looking exactly how you want it to look. All right, so now that we have that, what I'm going to do here is just fold this down. So we want to make sure that the wrong side is facing us. And I do have some rhinestones here that I may add on later, just to give it a little bit of extra pop. So I'm actually going to do a double fold down with this. For this part, we're going to gather, and I've showed you how to gather before. Right now, I'm going to put this on 8. I have my setting on 1, so we're using the tightest tension here. I'm using a 1 millimeter width here, and I'm using 4 for the length. And this is going to give us a tighter stitch, which is essentially going to gather this fabric together. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and then we'll go to the next step. Now that we have all our pieces cut, let's go ahead and sew together those sleeves that I messed up. So what I'm going to do here is a zigzag stitch so that it stays better than just my straight stitch. And I may go over it again with a zigzag stitch, but you know, we want to be as careful as we can with this tulle fabric. Always going to reinforce your stitch. Always remember to do that. So now the sleeve should look how we need it to look. And it does. If you ever have any questions about anything that I've done, or you don't understand anything that I've done, please let me know, and I'll be willing to answer any questions that you have. That we're ready. So what we're going to do is just take a straight stitch across our shoulders here. Okay, so this is what you should have right now. This is what it should look like, the neck hole. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and start attaching our sleeves. So what you want to do is have that side that you actually where the stitch is, you want to have that facing you, and just pin the top corner. Start pinning top corner to corner, and it should go kind of on a curve, so you know where to place the top of the sleeve to the top of the shoulder, and just go around until it stops at the end of the sleeve, the corner end of the sleeve. And I'm just going to go ahead and pin this first sleeve along with you, so that you know what I mean. This is if you've never worked with sleeves before, you'll know how to do it and how to pin it next time. And when we're ready to sew the sides together of the bodice half, we're just going to sew this all together So I'm just going to keep going around here. And we're going to put the tip part of the sleeve to the tip edge here of our bodice. If you can see that, that would be right there. See? So you just take this pin and you go ahead and just pin it. And you're going to do the same thing to the other side. And if you need to stretch the fabric to match up along with the tulle, then go ahead and do that. And we can do that because this is a stretch fabric. So what I like to do is pin my corners together first. And then go ahead and finish around. Head first and sew the shoulder around before you attach the other pieces. Then go ahead and let's do that. Let's go ahead and sew that together first before we attach it. So we're just going to place it in the sewing machine. We're just going to do a straight stitch. Actually, I'm going to do a zigzag stitch just because I'm working with the tulle. So now that we have our sleeve sewn, what I've done here is it's on the wrong side. So we're going to sew along this side and then we're going to sew our sleeve shut. So I'm going to keep a zigzag stitch going all the way. Then I'm just going to go over to the other side and see how our sleeve has come together. So now we have our top part done, and at this point we can turn it right side out. And like I say, you don't have to do anything to these ends here because they won't fray. If you want to, you can, but you don't have to. And I'll be adding a little something extra to this once I'm done, which is why I have my rhinestones over there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I am about to figure out how I'm going to attach that bodice piece. So now that we have that done, we're going to go ahead and attach. Now this we want to have right side out. As well, we want to have our bodice piece right side out because we're kind of going to sew this on top. And one little tip I want to give you here with this stretch fabric, you want to make sure you stretch this out, because one thing that happens when you sew a regular fabric on top of a stretch fabric, it's going to go along the way of the straight fabric. So just stretch this out a little bit and make sure that when we sew it, and see, actually with me adding this piece on the back, it's a little bit stretchy. That way, when she puts it on, it won't be so tight. So we actually made a plus by making a mistake here. So what I'm going to do is just slide this in like so. So this kind of sits on top here. Just a little bit. And I want this to go a little bit further up. Like that. I'm just going to pin and kind of angle this, and I'll show you what it looks like once I have it all pinned. So here we go. This is what it looks like pinned. We have a little curve here, and we're just going to sew on top of this. So we're just going to open this up and put it through our sewing machine here, and we're going to stretch the fabric a little bit as we go. I like to start at the seam. You can start wherever is comfortable for you. It's just what I like to do. We're coming together here. So now we have the top part of our dress sewn. See? And around in the back, I have a little extra stretch for her here, as you can see. So if it gets a little tight, it will stretch in the middle part of her back. Just because I made that simple mistake, that actually worked out in my favor. So now what we're going to do is take our skirt part, which I have gathered here. As you can see, again, I have made this 20 inches long instead of 26 like I initially stated. I did not roll the top part of our fabric over, and that's fine because you'll see why when I'm done. But I did hem the bottom part. I did a double fold for the hem there. So just a quick shout out to Alien Workshop. My son told me to give a shout out to them, so I'm going to give a shout out to them, whoever they are. But I am going to gather this piece here, which is the same length that I cut our satin piece, and then I'm going to place this on top of our satin piece and put this together with our bodice. So this is what it'll look like. So what I've done, I've also gathered the tulle piece, and the fact that it's longer than the satin is fine, because what the purpose of the satin is just to make sure her area is covered. Okay, so now we're going to take this and we're going to leave this open for now, but we're going to take this and we're going to add it to the bottom part here of the bodice. So what you're going to do is turn this on the wrong side, right, and try to get this as even as possible with the middle, right? So what I'm going to do is actually close this and then take this and try to make the middle of it as best I can. So this would normally be probably where I would put my back. So what I'm going to do is just take this like this and pin this down. And I haven't sewn the tulle to the satin yet, and that's going to happen as I put this together onto the bodice. And you want to give yourself enough space to when you're done, you're able to sew the bodice together. But I just like to wrap everything around first, sew everything around before I actually close the back part. So again, your bodice is on the right side and your skirt is on the wrong side. So when you flip it out, you're not going to see the seam. So now we have it all together, and what I like to do is take a look and make sure no seams got missed. And as I'm looking here, I see one part got missed, so I'm going to have to turn that back inside out and then go ahead and sew that so when she puts it on, it doesn't have any holes or tears. I'm just going to go down here, do a little reinforced stitch. Okay, so now that we've fixed that, we are all done. You can just pull on it to make sure there's no other holes or missed stitches anywhere. So this is it, if this is all you're doing. But I'm going to be adding some little stones to this. Actually, this is not it. We need to add the cape. So you can do this two ways. You can either connect these two pieces, or you could take piece by piece and just kind of attach it along the back here. And just gather it, just do a little bit of hand gathering, and then do the same thing to the other side. Or you can have it going straight across and maybe gathering a little bit here. So it's your choice, and then it'll still have, and just don't sew the edges together, so then it can still hang on each side. So I'm going to decide what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to use the rhinestones to add a little bit more shine to this dress. Okay, so I went ahead and added the back pieces. I just did a straight stitch across and just kind of added them to each side instead of just having them hang under the armpits like I did for the pink costume that we did. So now that I have all this done, and I did try this on her, so it does fit. Everything is sewn. Everything is together. I am going to actually add, we're done with the sewing machine at this point, I'm going to start adding some rhinestones to this. I'm going to add some at the top and then just in random places. So what am I going to use, you might add? I'm using this glue. If you watch my Tutorial Tuesday videos, you know that I use this glue a lot. I have my tool here to put my rhinestones on, and I also have my 3mm crystal rhinestones. And I'm just going to go ahead and place these on here. If you are not going to do that, then at this point you're done. But I'm going to go ahead and put these things on, and then I'll show you how it looks when it's all complete, and that'll be it. And here we go. I have added some rhinestones to her dress, and it looks so cute. So I have some around the collar, and I made a little snowflake, so it's really cute. And now I'm all done. And if you have any questions, like I said before, just say that in the comments. Anything that you want to know that I didn't show you about the costume, any fabric tips or anything like that, you can please feel free to ask me. If you make anything that I show you, please put your pictures up on either my Instagram page or Twitter or Facebook. Let me see what you've made, because I would love to see them. And again, I'm on every social media. Well, not everyone, but I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm also on Tumblr. My blog is frugaldiymom.com. I also have a family channel, so if you want to see my crazy family, just mosey on over and check out my other channel.